All right, Nick, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders now. The draft's over. Undrafted free agency has been settled down. We always try to dig through and see what coaches are saying, see what kind of tidbits we can get about what players are shining and who maybe can get a starting role on this team, make the roster. What kind of information can we gather from what is being said by the teams? And I think there's one tidbit from this Raiders team that is very, very interesting about one player in particular that I think has a real shot to make an impact on this team this season. We'll get into that in just a second, but first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, some information coming out about a player in particular, talking about third-round pick Charles Grant from William and Mary, about how he could impact this team early and potentially earn a starting role before people may have given him credit for. Let's get into the article and talk about it more on the other side. This is from over on The Athletic. It said it'd be more feasible for Grant to compete with DJ Glaze at right tackle, but switching sides isn't easy and requires a significant amount of mental and physical adjustments. The Raiders plan to cross-train him to see if he can pull it off, saying, we do not hold them back and we do not keep them out of the fire, Carroll said. We're going to put them in right away and let's see where they stack up. Something that'll help Grant is that he's a good fit for Kelly's scheme, which utilizes a zone-based blocking scheme similar to the one he played at in William and Mary. That and his unique combination of traits will give him a shot to compete for a role early on. Grant said, I have the great athletic ability, but if I can put the perfect technique to that, I think I become a player that is unstoppable. So Pete Carroll coming out saying, hey, we're not going to hold these guys back. We're not going to not put their feet to the fire. We're going to throw them straight in, see how they do, see if they can earn a role. Then similarly, I think Charles Grant is a very good fit for this team schematically, what he's able to do. And, DJ Glaze, he was okay last year, but I think when you look at Charles Grant and what he brings to the table, he could be even a little bit better. And that's what it's all about, getting the best starting 5 offensive linemen you can get. So let's pull up a chart here comparing Charles Grant to DJ Glaze. DJ Glaze's season last season versus Charles Grant's season last season. And first, we can see just overall, Charles Grant is head over heels better than DJ Glaze in every single category. It's not really even close. Grant's overall is like 90 plus, where DJ Glaze was in the mid 60s. His pass blocking grade was 88, where DJ Glaze was, again, low 60s there. Run blocking grade over 90.1 there. And then DJ Glaze about a high 60s grade there. So I know it is a little bit tough. People say, okay, you can't really compare NFL to college grades so much. So that's where, things get a little bit fuzzy. We can only compare what we can compare, but DJ Glaze did play in college at one point in time as well. So to give us a fuller, more round picture, let's compare DJ Glaze's last college season to Charles Grant's season this year as well and see if there's anything that, is different, possibly. Well, you look at that, not so much changing here. The only thing I see is DJ Glaze's pass blocking grades a little bit higher coming out of college, but Charles Grant still significantly a few 5-6 points higher than his was there as well. Still much better at run blocking, much better overall product. So DJ Glaze, Charles Grant is not close, and I think it really stacks up that he has a good shot to make this battle interesting, to potentially take over this right tackle spot. And the last thing I'll leave you with, Nick, here is I really think what they said is the scheme that Kelly brings here, that zone run scheme, does really, really make a big difference, because when you look at what Charles Grant did best, his gap blocking scheme grade 67.6, nothing to write home about. But when you look at his zone blocking grade, a 93.0, that is where he excels. This is a guy, seems like a strong fit for the Raiders schematically, seems like he has decent size, 6'4", 300. It seems like he's a guy that can bring a lot to the table. He's working on his perfect technique, or so he says, to be unstoppable. I really like what we're seeing out of Charles Grant so far, and I think this guy has great potential to be a starter on this team. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick, but before we get to you Raiders fans, in the comment section below, Nick loves to say this, and I think it's true. It almost feels like football season is here. It's not really, but we're starting to get closer and closer. The schedule has released. We've seen all the games out there. We're seeing some crazy stuff, international games, what have you. I think there's really interesting options out there. But what game do you want to see this year for the Raiders? Is it a big rivalry game you're looking forward to with a much improved roster, much improved coaching staff? You think you had a great shot at? Is it a game of a team that you haven't seen them play in a while? It might be interesting to you, or maybe a game that you yourself are going to. Let us know what game you're looking the most forward to in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest out of Las Vegas?
Well, the first to answer your question, I think we got to look at the matchup Las Vegas going to Arrowhead, right? That rematch, that game at the end of the last season where you had that just snap debacle. The Raiders, outplayed the Kansas City Chiefs, my opinion, pretty much the entirety of that game. Should have beaten them, right? Issues in the kicking game, had a chance to win it at the end. The false start, not snap, that like whole weird deal thing. That was a bad call. We talked about it at the time. I'm looking for the Raiders, a better Raiders team going into Arrowhead this upcoming season. I think that'll be a heck of a matchup. When you talk about guys having big games, big seasons for Las Vegas, this Charles Grant kid, and we talked about him right after the draft, the more you dive deep, and I love the analysis you did comparing him to DJ Glaze, because DJ Glaze was not terrible for the Raiders last year. We actually covered him in a lot of our film reviews. He was coming along, doing a lot of really good things. But when you look into the numbers, Grant actually performed a whole lot better collegiately than Glaze. Now, look, a lot of people will say, well, is that a level of competition thing? DJ Glaze played at the University of Maryland. Charles Grant, of course, played at William and Mary. Different levels of competition, right? Is that everything? Not necessarily. Remember, this is not your grandfather's college football landscape. We live in a world of NIL, of transfer portals, of people literally choosing to go to junior colleges and small colleges to get a lot of playing time to springboard into big advances later in their collegiate careers, right? The old days of, hey, you have to go to a Power Five conference if you want any chance of being a good football player are long since gone with everyone moving. There's a lot of great players that are stuck on the bench at Alabama. They go on to superstar in places like William and Mary, places like Marshall, places like, Western Michigan, things like that, and vice versa. There's a lot of great players at schools like William and Mary that go on to transfer to the Alabamas, the USCs, and Notre Dames. It's a completely different dynamic. So if you look at the talent level across the board, the difference between, say, a Maryland and a William and Mary has gotten a lot closer over the past half decade or so. So I think it's actually a good comp when you look at what they did at the collegiate ranks. And if you look at it, Grant was much better. Now, look, there's a lot of things he has to work on, the mastering the technique and everything you alluded to there. But the reality is Charles Grant, when push comes to shove, is just a really darn good football player who's really experienced. In fact, if you look at the Raiders draft class as a whole, if you look at their entire class, had the second most snaps of any other team in the National Football League. Only the Seattle Seahawks drafted more players who had more collegiate snaps than the Las Vegas Raiders. And Charles Grant had over 2,600 snaps playing college football during his time with William and Mary in those ranks. So again, we're talking about a guy that is experienced. He's not his first rodeo, right? He's played a lot of ball. He's gone through the ups and downs. He's figured out who he is as a football player, at least in terms of a baseline. So he can slide in there with a lot of confidence, right? Some of these developmental projects, you take a guy in the first or second round or some third round or whatever it may be, who's got like good skill sets, who's a good athlete, but he's new to football, new to the position. Sometimes it takes time. And honestly, in my opinion, those are the guys that generally become busts, right? If you get me a good, experienced football player, he can usually slide in and contribute right away. And that's exactly what Charles Grant is. Remember, 2,600 plus snaps in the collegiate ranks, really good production, really consistent player, positional versatility. It's no surprise whatsoever that the Raiders coaching staff, they're trying to find a place to put him. They're like, listen, Colton Miller's really good, but we look at DJ Glaze, he had a good year too. But I tell you what, there's something about this kid. We got to give him opportunities because we think there's something special. And look, if you look at the data, it's hard not to disagree with the Raiders coaching staff. This third round pick, a lot of people question it at the time. But if you look at the analytics, if you look at what the Raiders coaching staff is saying and doing, it's clear there's a special prospect brewing in Charles Grant.
Yeah, Nick, and I think when you look at Grant, he just brings everything to the table you want. You said the comp, college to college. Grant's just better. He's flat out better, and he's really significantly better in a couple of different categories, especially where you think the things that you can pass blocking is a critique thing. Like there's more nuance to it. Where run blocking, in my opinion, is more physicality. Hitting your man, really just imposing your will on them And that's where he really outshines DJ Glaze. He's head and shoulders better in the run blocking game. They're kind of closer when you compare college to college in the pass blocking stat. But again, DJ Glaze, he had a significant drop off in pass blocking when he went to the NFL. Is Charles Grant going to have that? I don't know, but I think him being significantly better, as far as still 5 or 6 points better in pass blocking, gonna help out some. But Grant, I really like what he does here. I like his physicality. And one thing that people, kind of discredit too, I think this is a guy that he's got all the right things. I think, you look at what his pros are as far as what he wants to do. They talk about him being light, powerful, having good lateral quickness, being able to reach defenders well. And one thing I personally like, I think is important, he has a strong wrestling background, giving him great base, great body control. That's something that I think is going to be good. But when you look at his cons, it's saying, hey, this guy played at a lower level of football. That's really all the stuff they're saying is, can he progress? So if that's the only thing you're gambling on there, I would take that 9 times out of 10 is, hey, can this guy move up to the next level? Probably. I think he's got all the skills to do it. He's got the size to do it. We're not talking about some guy that's, like 6 foot 190. He's big enough to play at the tackle position in the NFL. I think this guy is going to be a really interesting prospect, and I truly believe he's going to earn a starting spot on this Raiders offensive line.
And you hit one attribute there, just to put a bow on this, that's really important, right? Charles Grant being a really good run blocker, very physical presence. If you look at what the Raiders and Pete Carroll are trying to do, it's to get back to being a physical running football team. Obviously, the first round pick taking Gene T, right? That's exactly why you do that. You're trying to be a powerful football team. You sign Raheem Mostert, a veteran running back. You're trying to get back to running the football more, being more consistent with that. Even Geno Smith, a veteran guy who's done a lot of good things, he's at his best in two situations: 2-minute drill and play action shots down the field. You only get those play action shots when you run the ball. The Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll, obviously their glory years were all about Marshawn Lynch running the football, Russell Wilson play action. It all starts with those guys up front winning the line of scrimmage. It's clear that the Raiders want to be physical. They want to be tough. They want to pound the rock. And Charles Grant is perfectly suited to do just that.